everyone, I'm Phil, and today we're going to look at the rear camera for the second time. So it's been a week since I published and released my first video on this camera. So I've had a week of extra experience, and there's been a release and an upgrade to the rear camera operating system, and also the Node Red for the camera has changed. So previously, I won't go through all the items, but what we're looking at is a camera that looks like this. So I might bring it across. So there's the camera. And if you look at the front of the camera, we've got in the center, the camera lens, and that's surrounded by 4 LEDs. And there's the camera there. And you can see that you can mount that on a 1/4-inch tripod mount. So just looking at the construction of that camera, it's got a number of boards that all fit together. And I've taken it apart and I've had a good look at it. So we go across to the software. Good idea to understand a bit about Linux. So I'm a bit rusty on this, but I'm gradually catching up. Good idea to know how to change the passwords, what the root password is, how to shut down, what the configuration. So the more that you know about Linux, the better. And the program that I use to transfer files is a Windows SCP. Very handy to explore the contents of the directories and the files in rear camera. So I think that's worthwhile. Since last time, I've done an update, and I was able to just use the dashboard for that update. Streaming wise, I'm using VLC, and that's working quite well. And I'm trying to get other programs to pick up the stream, the video stream. I've explored a lot on Node Red. There's quite good documentation, but not many models. We'll have a look at the models in a minute. And Node Red wise, I've had a lot of experience with that already. And there are potentials for extra flows. So if you look at other nodes that are available, for example, if you bring in Sonos, and I've got that on my home assistant application, here I'm able to identify an image, identify the object in the image, and then announce what that is on my home audio system based on Sonos. So there's a few other ones. You don't need the dashboard because in the Node Red upgrade, they included a dashboard. So that was okay. So that's Node Red. The more you know about Node Red, the more you can do. So the main model that I'm using is one of the Node Red that comes with the system, and you can change your models on the device and on the SenseCraft Zoo, and if you have other ones, you can upload those from your own file server. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the projects I've done in the last week. So the most interesting ones, I've gone through. I did the commissioning last week, and I've looked at primitives like how do I control lights, and I've looked at the construction of the messages that are coming from rear camera. Streaming wise, I've worked on that. I've done interprocessor communications with MQTT, UDP, and web sockets. And the one that I like the best is MQTT. I find that to be the most reliable. Also looked at the dashboard and created some additional items like a gauge on the dashboard. So that's one option you can follow up. I've got a recovery method And I've only used this once, and I've created steps so that I can delete a file if there is a problem. So if you freeze your, if Node-RED just won't start, then just delete flows.json. So that's been very handy. Nice to have as a recovery. Then I wanted to not only identify, but get the identification and the label. I want to broadcast that using MQTT. But since I'm looking at something like 50 frames a second, I can get too many notifications. And what I've done is to try and minimize that. So the latest program is this one. And the objective here is to get the camera to communicate with other Node-RED processors. So I've got three of them. One on the camera, and it's going to communicate with Home Assistant and my notebook computer. And I'll be using MQTT to do that. So MQTT sits on our home server, which is also running Linux. I want to remove the error messages in case I'm not picking up anything. I want to do some error message handling. And I'm going to change the model this time. And I'm going to look at YOLO 11, where I've got a class of 80 objects. And I want to detect these objects. So that these are some of the things that I want to pick up. And you can see what the images are. We'll go across in a minute and have a look at these separately. So that's the objective, change the model. And I also want to count the number of each item. So I'm going to get my program to recognize up to 2 different objects and any number of repeats of that class and report back to me. So if there are 5 people and 2 cars, I'll be able to detect that and report back the number of each class. So background-wise, I'm using Node-RED. I've looked at the data structure, and I've also had a bit of feedback on discourse. Hardware, I'm using rear camera, and I'll be using the Ethernet connection for that. The model on rear camera, this is what I used previously. Now I've changed that. And the notebook computer and the home computer. Let's have a look at the software. Node-RED wise, I've got Node-RED running on my Home Assistant, the rear camera, and also Magpie. So if we look at Home Assistant, here's the model. We might go across now and have a look at that. Here's my program on Node-RED. And what I'm doing is connecting the camera and sending the data flow to the model. And if I open up the model, you can actually see the model name, the confidence level, and all the classes. So if we scroll right down, we've got 80 of those. And then I'm sending that off to a filter. Now, the idea on this one is that we'll only report if there's a change on this debug window. So debugging is quite important when I'm developing this program. And in this function, this is an interesting one. What I'm doing is extracting the labels, and this will tell me in plain English what the items that have been identified, what they are. And I'm allowing for 2 of those. Now, notice the way that I've addressed it. In boxes, I've also looking at 2 different types of objects to identify. And it happens that I'm getting quite a lot of data from that. But in the array, I want the 5th item, which is the item code. And I'm also counting for only the first item, the length of that. So in labels, dot length, that will tell me how many items. So if the label is people and there are 5 people, the length of that will be reported back. So the item 0 count will be 5. And I don't want to broadcast. I want to minimize the number of messages I'm sending. So I only send 1 in 100 using this JavaScript function. And the output of that JavaScript function goes to different MQTT. So if you look at one of them, there's item 0 has a topic of user 1 rear camera / item 0. And I get that also reported on the debug window over here. And you can see on that debug window that I've already identified traffic lights. They're quite nice to get the full identification in English. And then I'm looking at other items, the count, 2 counts, count for the items and the count for going through this whole loop and only broadcasting 1 in 100. And I also have a preview. So you can see the preview window is just here. And if I send this across to another computer screen, we might actually have a look at some images. So this is the Node-RED program on my notebook computer. So in this group here, we have image messages from the rear camera going to a debug window, and that those messages are coming out on the right panel in the debug window. On the bottom, if we want to control the lights on the camera, we just press the button here. And so this one, if we press that button, it will send the camera lights on, and this one will turn them off. So we have a remote way of controlling the lights on rear camera. And we can use a light detector with M5 stack. And if the light level, the ambient lighting is too low, it can also control rear camera's lights. So here's our Home Assistant screen, and I've got Frigate connected to that. I've got the garden and Node-RED. So Node-RED's also embedded in the Home Assistant. And in Flow 4, I've got a Node-RED program, but this has been configured for an older version. But down here, you can see when I get a class or a count, it will then report that on the debug window. Alternatively, I could interact with one of the other objects that's connected to Home Assistant. So let's have a look at the images that are detected. So here we can actually pick up the 3 faces of our subject. And I'm going to move across to the next group. So we'll share the other screen. We'll go across and we're going to share screen. Okay, so you can see that we're picking up those objects quite okay. And this is the results that we're getting. And on MQTT, we're getting the results there. On this one, we're able to recognize a person. And the results of that are shown on the screen. The results also for MQTT Explorer. And even when we get cranky faces or faces that are a bit twisted, we're picking that up too. And besides getting a person, it's also recognizing the overall envelope or the overall window as an umbrella. So there's one false positive that we've got. And we're not picking up the faces there, but we can pick them up if we get the angle correct. So we have to align the camera in the right way. This is one area where we didn't pick up any of these faces at all. This is what it looked like from the camera screen. And again, we didn't pick up any of these ones. We were able to pick these ones up. All of these were identified and added to the count. And for other objects like clocks, we were able to get the results on a remote Node-RED and also on MQTT Explorer. And we're able to count. So the labels came up as clock in an array. So labels 0 was clocks and labels 1 was also clock. And it was able to pick that up and count them. And here are the images that we get on the screen. So, so you can see that I've expanded this now to include more topics for the MQTT server. So we weren't able to pick this one up, and we had some difficulty identifying this as a bird. So you can see it thought it was a person. So there was a couple of errors, but if we change the bird, we look at this one, we're able to pick that one up quite well. Same with the dog, we were able to pick up the dog and the cat. But it does take some time to adjust to a new image, and it can take a couple of minutes, then it was able to identify that. So a car, and there's even a person on the left, it was able to pick up both of those. And was able to pick up the car and the person on that image. Looking at things like boats, started off when we went from one image to another, it kept on retaining the label and the identification for the previous one. So it thought this was a car, but after a while, it recognized it as a boat. Traffic lights, we're able to pick up these, and even traffic lights with different numbers, buses, and even the people that are waiting for the bus or waiting to get on the bus, it picked them up too. So we're able to identify the number of people and also the object, that is the bus. And even here, we're able to pick up the people on the bus and the bus. And there are results of some of the test images. Okay, so what are some of the other future projects that I've got in mind? Let's just open it up and see the possibilities. I still would like to do a simple camera. And what I'd like to do is just press a button and initiate the lights as flashlights on rear camera. And I'll do that with M5 Stack. So there's an example of how you might be able to do that. I want to be able to save images while they're streaming it at the moment. They're not being saved when I want them. They're happening just automatically on a regular basis. So I want to do a little bit more on streaming and get all of those streams into Frigate. I've done quite a few use cases for future projects. So using one of the models which is available, I want to count the number of strawberries on the table. When the strawberries are put on the table, it will announce on Sonos to the household that the strawberries are available. I want to do some gesture detection, and so far I haven't got a model for doing that. And that could be quite useful for people with disabilities. Detecting people, I can count them now, so that scenario is okay. And I'd like to be able to find out if there are too many people in a lift and how many people are waiting for the bus. If they're waiting too long, then inform Uber that there's a possibility of some extra customers that have been waiting too long for the bus. And also for aged care, I want to detect if someone's lying on the floor and they need assistance. So then I can use rear camera to him to try and get some help. Air conditioning wise, if there are more people in the room, it will count the number of people and increase the power to the air conditioner and perhaps cool it automatically. Security wise, if there's someone in the driveway, I can be informed about that. And safety wise, if a person has a weapon, then we can sound an alarm. And so that could be quite useful. And perhaps also safety-wise in fire detection, bushfires and so on. So we can use more remote cameras to identify what's happening in the environment and warn us about that. Transport-wise, we've already mentioned buses and cars, but also incidents in recognizing things like a traffic incident. And in places like the Transport Management Centre, where they have thousands of cameras, some AI in those cameras could automatically alert the operators, the human operators, to focus in on that particular incident. M5 stack integration, well, I want to do that with music and use it as a front door alert. Okay, so things that I'm interested in, what are the limitations? And at the moment, I can only do one model at a time, whereas some of those use cases will require two models to operate. I'm interested in the accuracy, and also the latency seems to be an issue. That is, when you change from one object to another, it is taking some time for the camera to respond. Okay, so let's summarize now. We'll go to our critique and have a look at my general experience. So there's been a big improvement. I'm getting the operating system has been upgraded and I haven't crashed that yet. And I do have a recovery strategy. Performance-wise, streaming is excellent. We're getting the 50 frames a second without any problems. The external memory, we've got plenty of that. We've got heaps of memory there, although the RAM is a little bit limited, so you still have to be a bit careful. That eMMC is generally not available for your programs directly. Processor-wise, there's nothing really published on the architecture. That is that there is an AI accelerator, but we don't know much about it. Node-RED-wise, there are some demos. They're okay, but they're quite limited. And we can do things like LED control. Support-wise, there's quite an active Discord community, and there's everyone's helping each other to get going on that. The construction of the camera, the mechanical construction is good. The metal case is quite excellent. The bad points, well, software-wise, it's still a bit immature, but a lot better than it was in the first generation. The Node-RED is a little bit limited, although I'm gradually overcoming that now. Access to the user mode, some functions need root access. Camera-wise, problem with the camera in recording images is a bit limited. I can't trigger saving and I can't trigger streaming. So it's only doing that automatically at boot and at regular intervals. Haven't done anything on the microphone and the speaker, so that's something that isn't supported directly yet. It does crash and it can have very long latencies. So that's an issue. There are no other development options for you other than Node-RED at the moment. So I think that's a bit of a limitation. I'm getting some false positives, but I've been able to see that it's not only just getting false positives, but it's the latency. And the false positives go down um, after it does the switching from one image to the other. Documentation-wise, it's a little bit limited and incomplete. And there's AI training. It's not directly supported for the user. So you are using other people's models and hoping that fits with your scenario quite well. Construction-wise, I found putting the Ethernet cable in and also the micro SD card, I lost that, and that was an issue. IO ports, I think it would be great if it had a couple of simple Grove GPIO ports so that you could do things like switch the camera. I find the user button to be quite inaccessible. That is the one which is on the camera itself. So overall, I'm actually improving on that now. So we might actually say overall, there's been a big improvement on that. And it depends on what you want to do with the camera. I think I do recommend it for people that would like to explore Node-RED operating an AI camera. So I think it'd be it's okay there. So I've improved my score to 6 out of 10, and I think as more effort is put into maturing that software, we're going to get a better score there. So if you're interested, go over to Seed Studio, and they're now in partnerships with others to develop AI models. So we should see an improvement on the number which is available. So if I go across now, we could go across to, yeah, it's still available from the cheaper version without Wi-Fi on 8 through to the one that I've got, which is Wi-Fi and 64 kilobytes. And there's a bit of a wiki available also. Okay, so that's it from me for the time being. Next week, I'm going to show a video on the M5 stack AI cameras. So here's my rear camera on a tripod, and it's looking at the images on this computer screen. And on the other computer screen, I'm looking at identifying those. So you can see that it's identified all of these as people. And if I change the image, what I'll do is just move through, scroll some of these images and see what it looks like on the screen. Okay, so we're picking up, if we go over to the original image, this is the camera looking at the image there, and this is what it's picking up on the output of the rear camera. And we'll go through a few more. There's a person. And on this one, this was the image that we picked up. We didn't pick up this one. This one, the camera wasn't able to identify that at all. No trouble in identifying this one. And we've got a clock here, and you'll notice that it's identifying this as a person. So there's a bit of a latency when I switch from one object to another. So there's a problem that needs to be resolved. Here we've got, now it's got one clock and one person. So it's identifying the clocks on all of those. It couldn't identify the toaster. So there's one of the few objects that I couldn't identify. And same with the bird. It identifies the bird as a person. So you can see there's a bit of a latency. We're identifying the bird okay. Some of them, it picks them up quite well. So for the dog, it's identifying that quite well. And it's identifying the cat as a dog. But if I wait long enough, it'll change that to cat. So it's got cat now, and it's identified the car as a cat. Now the problem here is just pure latency, because it will change. If it's got a car now, and a car and a person. So we've got a person and a car, and it's identifying both of those quite accurately. The boat, it's identifying that as a car, and the traffic lights also as a car. Now we've identifying the correct labels for our traffic lights, and we've got two of them, and it's able to identify both of those. Now we've got three traffic lights. So over here is our original image, and this is the image from our rear camera. Okay, so we'll leave it at that.